fall prevention wise, we're trying to build on more stability around the hip and ankle. I think those are the big 2 points. So with that, you're kind of just looking at expressing your full range of motion. So in terms of the ankle, we can work our way up. It's simple, just foot to the floor. We're bringing the toes back to the knee, and then just even some rotations with your foot at times. Even I like to give simple exercises such as ABCs, where we get people to even just write the alphabet with their foot, just to stretch their ankle at times, because we often can go over on the ankle and that's where we lose our balance. So I think if we can do that, and then moving up into the hip, we'd like to use a chair for support at all times before, and then even leaving the hands on the chair, and then just even doing some nice knee raises or abduction where we bring the leg away from the other, or even kicking the leg behind us. I think that can be really good, and I think maybe even some core exercises can be helpful.
I always find that the people are asking about balance and fall prevention, and I'd always say the standing leg exercise, that's where we bring stability, core in. It all fits in terms of balance and indeed strengthening the leg. So where we have that chair in front of us for support, and we do things like our leg curl, or our hip abduction where we lift our leg out by our sides. Any movement like that, you're working on balance as we lift the leg out, core involved. We're also strengthening those hip muscles.
I would say it's a great place to start if we haven't been doing much, and again, we're looking at 20 to 30 minutes at a time and trying to build on that. But as we mentioned before, we start to even lose some bone density at the age of, I think it's 25. We'll lose 1% per year. So to counteract that, we obviously need to strengthen our bones, and that comes from the resistance exercise that we often do in classes.
Like walking is great, and people always ask me in classes, I walk, is that good? And absolutely a great form of aerobic fitness, but I'd always encourage to try and supplement that with some form of strength training. So important as we get older, we lose that muscle and bone strength and density, so just try and improve and strengthen the muscles going forward. In addition to that, I'd always say just try and some form of physical activity that you actually enjoy. So it doesn't matter if that's an exercise bike, lifting weights, something that you actually feel you'll engage with and persist with long term. So that's something I'd always try and aim for as well, not something you really don't enjoy.
Age is only a number, isn't it? So
That's
there's no reason why you should ever stop exercising, even if it's just the smallest bit. If it's 10-20 minutes a day, I think we can always just do a small bit, and not accept that we shouldn't exercise once we get older. I think you see what happens when that starts to develop. We start to rely on other people to look after us. So it's really about trying to push ourselves as much as possible for as long as possible. So I don't think there's ever an age we should stop exercising. Like, I've got a 93-year-old woman who takes part in my classes every week. She hasn't missed a class since April at this stage. So she should be an example for everyone to look at, I think, at that stage, and we should always push ourselves as much as possible.
Yeah, like I've regularly come into contact with people into their hundreds now, and they're still exercising. It's amazing actually what people can do. Similarly, I work with people who are visually impaired, and again, it's no impingement for them to exercise. In fact, they're often some of the best exercisers I've come across. So there's absolutely no age barrier. I'd always just say do what you can, what you comfortably can, but there's always something you can do.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you might notice it, the smaller things that you're able to get to the shops and back that bit easier, with that little less back pain afterwards, that you can stand up and sit down from a chair. It's about exercise and carrying into your daily movements, whether it's reaching even up for the top shelf and being able to get your arm above your shoulder, even at times where that might have been difficult before, or you find it easier to just function throughout the day that bit easier. I think that's the most benefits that we can see from exercise, is that if it kind of carries over to our daily living, and those are the things that sometimes we don't notice, but even other people, whether it's family members or stuff like that, they're not having to help you out in those difficult cases that would have been hard for you before the exercise.
Yeah, and it's something like that's always so common. I had a lady recently telling me how she could recently now she can reach towards a cupboard that
Yeah.
she previously couldn't.
Yeah.
It's always those little anecdotal things, but even it's worth setting yourself a little challenge. Or I said goal setting again. Maybe how high can you raise your arm, and assessing that after a couple of weeks of performing certain types of exercises, and just see is there any improvement. So you can actually monitor it yourself and see do you notice any improvements, and if not, you can try other things instead.
Yeah.